Joining me today is former New Hampshire State Senator Jim Rubens, who's also been a candidate for the U.S. Senate. Jim, I want to touch base. There's probably some local issues that we might want to get to, say maybe Northern Pass or something. I know you had strong opinions about that. But I really want to pick up on sort of, your thoughts nationally.
Yeah.
As you think about the political situation that we're in still in the first 100 days of a new presidency. Sort of pick it up there. What are the key issues that you think we, as a society, have to sort of address?
Yeah, well, the reason I ran for U.S. Senate twice in 2014 and 2016, motivated as a citizen, persist. We have a Congress and a Washington that is derelict. They're derelict in their duty to solve the nation's nearly existential problems. And there are five of them that really bother me. One of them is debt. Our country is swamped in debt. We've got to fix this. Our health care costs are twice what they are elsewhere in the industrialized world, and our health status and outcomes are lower than these countries that are spending half as much. We have a national security strategy. We're now at war with soldiers on the ground in 6 countries. It's been a strategy that has, for 16 years, we've been in endless war. It has not worked. We need to be analyzing this much more carefully. We have a corrupt system of politics in Washington where it forbids debate in depth and solutions on issues like this because of the bought and paid for political system. And finally, we have a very difficult problem, particularly for Republicans, which is global warming, human-caused global warming. It's a national security problem. The world's largest military base is being flooded as a result of this problem. So these kind of problems, very difficult. There's no question that they're difficult, and there's a divide, a polarization between worldviews, between right and left. Washington is still responsible for fixing these problems. Congress needs to belly up to the bar and get working on them. And underlying that is a failure. You're in the business of media. We have a media where there's no business model by which American citizens can be informed in depth, which cultivates, encourages, and demands debate in depth so that we can actually wrap our arms around the problems. And citizenship. Citizens are required in a free nation like this to be fully engaged and to demand detail, demand debate. And all of these things are very thorny, difficult, rich problems. And fortunately, human beings, we have had a trajectory of continuing enlightenment. We've become more knowledgeable, more wise, more humane. I think that'll continue. So looking out long term, we're going to get onto this. But the clock is running out in our country. We've got to deal with this stuff.
They're interconnected.
Yeah.
All of the, which adds to the complexity. And the interconnectedness and the complexity make it almost hard to have a debate, because it seems to me when you get into one thing, the externalities associated with that spill over into other things, and it's a bumpy road. It's not as smooth. If I do this, this will happen and the world will be great. It's more complicated than that. If I do this, we'll be better here, but a little bit worse off here, perhaps.
Trade-offs and everything. I mean, if we're going to reduce the cost of healthcare, how do we bring healthcare costs down to the point where we're competitive with the rest of the world and the health status of Americans is higher? We have just talking about this to show how thorny this problem is. Half of healthcare costs in the U.S. Are generated by 5% of the population. People over age 65, the typical person over age 65 has 2 chronic diseases. We're the most obese major society in the world. We don't exercise enough. We now know that half of food calories intake our country, half of food calories are coming from junk food. How do you deal with making us healthier and bringing healthcare costs when you have food products in the free market which they sell us cheap salt and sugar and fat, and it tastes good to us? What do we do in a free market when people are free to advertise junk food to us and we're eating it? How do you deal with thorny problems like this? We've got to deal with them.
Or we're free to buy it. I mean,
we are free to buy it, and I'm not an advocate of prohibiting people from buying or selling such products, but nonetheless, this is a problem. We've got to deal with it.
So we've got about 10 seconds
Yeah.
left. But
Ooh.
in this
deal with
segment,
all five?
in this
Okay.
segment,
All right.
if you were to tackle one first,
Yeah.
what should we as a country really tackle first?
Oh gosh, probably the debt problem. It's coming up again in about a month. Our budget, our national budget, comes up again. There's going to be a debate about it. We're in the Congressional Budget Office just released its revised 30-year
Projections,
doom and gloom projections
and there's
just
a lot
yesterday.
Of debt. Okay,
a lot of debt.
I have to cut you off here, but when we return,
All right.
we're going to talk about debt and maybe what some of the solutions might be, or at least some of the issues that we're dealing with. So please stay with us.